What's up, everyone? Alright, I'm actually pretty serious today. Um, I just became aware of this. I've been screaming about it. Sorry, been screaming about it. I can't be screaming about it, but it's fun. So what it is like, right? Get everybody's attention, right? Get everyone's attention. But here it is on paper too. I have been made aware that on October 3rd, 2024, 13 YMAB Sues output this video. Police using mobile device to detect cannabis and other drugs on the roads. And here's just a quick idea of
Your
what that is.
cocaine, opiates, your methamphetamine, cannabis, CNS depressants or benzodiazepines, and then a stimulant, which is your amphetamines.
This is SoToxa. Officer.
That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. Okay? I'm immediately curious because it reads the Irondequoit Police Department, right? 13 Rochester 13 Irondequoit, right? Near Monroe County. The Irondequoit Police Department is the first law enforcement agency in Monroe County to use SoToxa, a mobile device that can be used to detect cannabis and other drugs on the side of the road. And I myself, oh, this is curious. It's just like as I have like a little AI predictor, and it just asks or wonders about how much weed I might have in my car, how much. Oh, neat. I was like, that sounds absolutely insane. I was like, but no. I was like, that's detect cannabis and other drugs on the side of the road. This is actually not at all what SoToxa does. It doesn't detect cannabis. But it's okay. It's all good. What this means here is that this is a mobile testing
So it's
unit.
got your cocaine, opiates, your methamphetamine, cannabis, CNS depressants, or
This is a mobile testing unit, right? And this is the statement I presume as provided by Irondequoit Police Department last year in October, right? So this is 4 months ago, 5 months ago. With the legalization of cannabis, we're starting to see an increase of drivers driving under the influence of not only cannabis, but other drugs and a mixture of cannabis and alcohol. Okay. And so the first issue with this is that you cannot take any bodily fluid from someone without a warrant. And you would need a court order to legally collect a blood, urine, or saliva sample from someone unless there are specific legal exceptions like consent or exigent circumstances. I suppose this doesn't specify hair follicles, but that would not tell you about the recency of usage, right? But you see, all of this doesn't fucking matter at all. This is what we are seeing. Exigent circumstances. Unless there are specific legal exceptions like consent or exigent circumstances, this is considered a search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment, which typically requires a warrant. Right? But it's the typically requires, right? And the exigent circumstances part that kind of piss me off here. Because with Irondequoit's, right, first off, bias on the idea that cannabis has been legalized, and thusly, we are starting to see an increase of drivers driving under the influence of specifically cannabis, would be indicative of an amount of profiling that is illegal. There is no way in hell that any police in Monroe County or New York State, are detecting or seeing an increase of drivers driving under the influence of cannabis. And how do I know this? Because in the state of New York, was it made illegal to even detect, right? A police officer is not allowed to profile an individual smoking a cigarette of any variety or a vape of any variety with the consideration that it would be anything other than nicotine or tobacco. not allowed to detect marijuana in this circumstance. And this is a means to protect the fact that marijuana was made recreationally legal here on the state level. And this was to help drivers who were going to be using recreational marijuana to know that they were not going to be tested on the side of the road for it via urine screening. Because I would like to assert, right, I'm a big guy, and I've been smoking a lot of marijuana my entire life. I have a lot of fat tissue that bonds with tetrahydrocannabinolic, or tetrahydrocannabinous, or cannabinol. And the Delta 9 that I inhale, the activated Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, right, gets turned into, right, essentially a Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol that's bonded with my fat. This is no longer cannabis that affects me. This THC cannot affect me anymore, right? It can't possibly get back into my blood to affect my brain. The problem is that I'm still losing sediment from the THC cells from the fat, or the THC in the fat cells. And that is actually, as my fat kind of dissolves over time and it's making new fat and then using old fat, that does metabolize right back down into the urine. And so the THC comes down in the urine, and that is not from my most recent smoke. No, that is from the fact that I am a guy who is big and smokes. And that stuff that you're detecting in the urine sampling here is not indicative of use that day. It's not indicative of use that day. It could be indicative if you show up positive for marijuana detection. For me, that could be me smoking weed 3 months ago and I'd quit cold turkey. And you, as a police officer, and your stupid little device, and no offense, police officers, but your stupid little device there is going to make it out as if I had just smoked marijuana that day. And you don't have any proof or evidence of that. In fact, that window of detection is 3 months after last use, at least. So this is not an effective method of seeing, right, if your user, if anybody you've pulled over was actually impaired on cannabis at all, right? So the mere fact, again, Irondequoit Police Department, right? Irondequoit Police Department. You are taking the bias that since cannabis has been legalized, that you are allowed to start to see an increase of drivers driving under the influence of not only cannabis, but other drugs. Other drugs, fine, right? Nothing about that. That's the one that I have a big fucking issue with, right? Because that's been made recreationally legal in my state. And you are trying, Irondequoit Police Department, to make it less recreationally legal. Directly. And I have a giant fucking problem with that. Now, this does not go to, right, the beat officers, the patrol officer of Irondequoit Police Department. I don't have angst with any of you. What I would ask nicely of you is that you put this fucking thing away. And you start making noise. This doesn't help us do our job better. This just makes people that we help protect feel more scared of us. And it ruins the mission. The idea here is that this has to have been done absolutely to contradiction of the state level legislation that we did an awful lot of educating on here for a long fucking time around the Coy, right? And Monroe County is very pro-weed. So I don't think you've picked the most popular choice here. I don't think you have a right to undermine the state legislation with these devices. you might use these devices removing the detectability for cannabis whatsoever. Because I don't have a state level legislative restriction against that. I do have a restriction against this idea that we are right, allowed to erode the process of requiring court order to legally collect the blood, urine, or saliva sample from the person on the road first, to then B, generate a continuum of exigent circumstances trying to allow folks like Irondequoit Police Department to enable shit like this, when I myself can't believe that any enforcer of the Irondequoit Police Department would want to use this bullshit. This is only going to make people at risk of going into terrible legal issues just for using a substance legally. Alcohol definitely impairs driving. Cannabis, even this cannot be argued all the way. It might impair driving. Breathing might impair driving. Blinking might impair driving. Alcohol could definitely impair driving. Cannabis, I've always felt like a much better driver upon, but it's okay, I'm medically prescribed. This is also something that would detect me, again, for being a recreational user and a prescribed marijuana user, and then treat me as if I was driving illegally. And then now I, with some level of bureaucratic or administrative end on my end, I have to protect myself, potentially go to court. I have a big issue with any officer, honestly, who might actually refer to this. In my opinion, as a police officer, the best way to go about stuff like this is just don't even make calls on the cannabis one. And that's just to go ahead and better support the needfulness of policing in our country, in our community, in our county, and then in beautiful Irondequoit. I do have to hold somebody accountable, though. And so the person heading the Irondequoit Police Department, when this I'm just going to go ahead and say this is illegal. I don't know if it's illegal for them to have done it, but this is very illegal, right? I was like head. I forget. Police chief. It was one Scott Peters. Right? He has over 30 years of experience in law enforcement, mind you. So it's not like he's not a fucking police chief worthy of his salt. The issue is, sir, that I find you to be the head accountable in this circumstance who did not bring this up. During a period that I myself have been incredibly output. Hey, Aurora. I have been incredibly output on the nature of both the need for community police resources and our ability to enforce folks and get people protected, right? But at the same rate, how it is that we cannot be stoking drug war bullshit because it only ever eroded trust in the police in the first place. And then worse, it eroded the police's ability to humanize the people that they were supposed to be affecting in their communities. So there's Scott Peters' phone number and his extension. He's been on RPD. He came in 23, it told me. He began his role January 23. So in just, I guess a year and January 2023, but this is 24, so it was a year and 9 months, a year and 8 months, was it that, right? So it's not like he didn't serve a good year and 8 months prior. This is an issue. This is an issue, man. And I don't blame you for it directly. I'm sorry my own previous screaming, I just get so fucking up in arms. Get so fucking up in arms. But, you know, I gotta process stuff the way I gotta process stuff. This cannot be. This cannot be in Irondequoit. This cannot be in Monroe County, because this cannot be in New York State. And if I'll have my way, this won't be in the United States of America or any of its territories. Thank you for your service. 32 years of commitment. God bless you. What I have to say now is I'm going to go ahead and fuck off. I hope I've made a really strong point, though, guys. And I love you. I love you. But for the love of God,